So, long story short, I was speaking to a guy. He's actually a billionaire. Because I worked in management, and he was the founder of the company. What's his name? Joseph McGovern. Is that right? Yeah. This guy here. So, for a few minutes, I got a chance speaking to him. I asked him, like, what are the 3 books that he would recommend for anyone to read? And the list was how to win. Well, not everyone, but I mean a person who wants to do well in a business. What would he recommend? And he said How to Win Friends and Influence People, number 1. Number 2 was In Search of Excellence. Number 3 was Build to Last, I think. So I'm gonna be covering How to Win Friends, Influence People. The other books you can kind of read, but if you're not a business person, I don't know if it's relevant. So that's this book, and then Build to Last is this book. I had a red version. It's like red. Yeah, I had this version here. Chapter 2, Time Teller versus... Chapter 1, Clock Building versus Time Telling is probably one of my favorite concepts of all time. I'm not going to cover it in here, but I would recommend you kind of just Google this and try to understand what it does. It's a very simple concept. Well, it talks about culture, but think about... I'll give you an example. I'll give you a very, very quick example, okay? So, clock building is when you build a system that works without you being there, right? So, for example, let's say we want to motivate staff. We create commission structure. So, we don't need to be physically present to motivate staff to work, okay? Time teller has to be physically present to deliver the value. So, for example, motivational speaker. You see, he has to be physically present to deliver the value. Hairdresser is another one. Now, time teller is not a scalable model. Okay, for example, let's say me working as a consultant is time teller because I have to physically come over to you and I have to do the consultation. Me having a YouTube channel is clock building because right now, if you're watching this video, I'm probably doing something else. Does that make sense? Why is it called clock building? Because think about a person, think about selling the time as being value, right? Time teller who knows how to tell you the time, you have to knock on his door and be like, hey, what time is it? And he tells you. Whereas a clock builder will build the time, give you the clock, and you know what time it is without knocking on his door. This is scalable. Okay, so that's very, very important. If you want to be successful, rich, whatever, this is the way to do it. You have to create systems that deliver value while you're sleeping. Otherwise, it's not. Like, for example, you see, McDonald's is kind of like clock building, right? Because think about a cheeseburger. Anybody can make that bloody cheeseburger. It's so easy, right? Whereas some kind of a like a hamburger that is world class, that can only be cooked by one chef in the world, is not gonna work because you're gonna charge 20 euro for the cheeseburger, which is gonna be the most delicious cheeseburger in the world, but there's only one person who can do it in the world. And there's only so much time per day. Does that make sense? So, overall, try to be a clock builder, right? So, like, if you want to be a parent, like, try not to tell your kids, oh, eat your fruits, eat your fruits, eat your fruits. Think, how can I create a system that will encourage them to eat the fruits, right? So, like, if they eat 300 pieces of fruit in 1 year, you buy them something, some kind of motivational system, right? As opposed to you standing there and be like, eat the fruits, eat the veggies, right? Put the veggies into the potatoes. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Where they themselves will do it without you standing there, and be like, yeah, you know, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, okay? So that's this concept here. That's one of my favorite concepts from the book. Now this one is also pretty good. It's like big, hairy, audacious goals. This one basically I can summarize in one sentence. Aim for the moon, and if you miss, you're gonna land among the stars. There's actually a aim for the moon, and even if you miss. Yeah. This is pretty much this. Even if you miss, you land among the stars. Les Brown. Oh! I think it's the same guy, right? Oh, it's Jim Collins. No, Les Brown. Okay. Yeah, so that pretty much sums it up, right? So when you set goals, I mean, honestly, I'd say this is a dodgy one. This is kind of it was hit and miss for me. I don't think it actually impacts anything, right? I mean, but I'll be honest with you. When you analyze successful people, they're all big thinkers. Not a lot of successful people think, oh, I'm gonna finish college and get a job. Most people think like, I'm gonna build the next Facebook or whatever, right? And I was like that as well. I personally never played basketball because I wanted to be good at basketball. I wanted to beat Michael Jordan in Chicago Bulls and take his rings because I wanted to prove that I'm better, right? It's a bit of an aggressive goal, I know, but I mean, I honestly never thought anything less. So that was kind of like, when I play League, I just want to win 100% of the time. This is why, for me, playing this engagement optimized matchmaking system is unacceptable because I know it's rigged, right? But I mean, Faker cannot win 100% of the time. What are the chances of me doing it? Very slim. That's why I play one-on-one, because I can fulfill my big goals, which is winning 100% of the time, right? Alright, so that's kind of these two books, but we're not going to talk about them today. We're going to talk about this book here, and I'm going to sum it up for you. Nobody ever does that, but I was able to break it down into a simple mathematical formula. Like, I can break down people's skills into a mathematical, it's not like mathematical formula, but you'll see what I mean, right? Okay, so I call it emotional bank. Emotional bank, right? Let's actually do an Excel Google Doc. Yeah. Alright, so let's say we call this Jane. And this is things that add to her life. Okay? Anything that you do, you say, anything you could possibly do that make her life better is going to make her like you. Right? We're not necessarily shooting for liking, but we're just saying, like, one of my favorite sayings is leave this world better than you found it, right? You can scale it down and say leave this person better than you found them. Okay? So, anything you can do to make this person's life better will go on this side here. Alright? So let's say point. In here we're going to have points. And in here, makes it worse. And this is points. So the game is very, very simple. Right? Very, very simple. Remember, I don't know, you probably, when you start working in a company, your boss, if he is a successful, she is a successful person. Like, I got a privilege to work with a lady, she is a superstar, right? And she told me, before you ask a person something, bring him a cup of coffee first. Okay. So that kind of over time, long story short, that's over time I was able to figure this model out, right? Okay. So this is withdrawal, and this is contribution. Okay. Think of a bank account. Okay, think of a bank account. The easiest way to think about it is a bank account. Okay, so Jane, like a computer game, right? Jane is a character in the game, and she has an emotional storage bank of things that you've done that made her life better, and things that made her life worse done by you. Okay, so for example, let's say we compliment Jane. Compliment. Okay. That will add points. Okay, we make her coffee. Okay, that adds points. What else can we do? We can. She is raising charity. We contribute some money. Again, that gives points. Okay. You help her with task. Okay, that helps her points. She asks for your advice, and you give her some kind of valuable advice that actually changes her life, right? Advice on life changing. That's another one. She does something, and you compliment her, say, well done. All right? Do you see what I'm getting with this? Okay? And then here we're going to have a sum. Now, I believe it or not, right, I tested this because I live in shared accommodation because I like to kind of observe people and see how they behave, and shared accommodation has a lot of footfall, right? So you get to study a lot of people, why some people get into conflicts, why some people like each other, why one person is say you are charismatic, another person says he's not, do you know what I mean? And it all boils down to this, emotional ledger. You can just call it emotional ledger. People that are likable, charismatic, whatever the hell, good leaders, you can call it anything you want, they always contribute more than they withdraw. That's it. So think about it as they're like running a business that is contributing to other people's lives, a bank account that is always positive. Always. Right? In fact, they don't even do it. It's just their nature, right? Over time, you just build it and you just become like that person that just adds value, value, value. I'm talking about emotional ledger, saying well done, opening the door for the person, right? So this can be like small things, like they can be like, but over time, you have to remember they add and they add and they add and they add, right? Then you can say, hey, you know, how do I, like, you can then ask for favors in here. Let's say, I don't know, you ask, can you send me a link to the meeting because I don't have it, right? That's a withdrawal because that's you asking her a favor, right? So send me a link, right? So we're just gonna write down here, send me a link. I don't know, that's like withdrawal 5 points, let's say, right? You say, give me a lift home, right? Give me a lift home. That's kind of, if he's not going the same direction, that's a big withdrawal. So I'd say maybe that's like 30, right? And then you probably get, that's the balance. Right? So you probably guessed it right. People who I already told you, who are charismatic, who are nice, you know, people that you like, they are gonna be people that add to your life and they have positive balance. Now, have you noticed people that you don't like? They are like sucking value out of you, right? So what they're doing is they are not doing any of that shit. They're just like, give me a lift home, complaining, right? Because listening to people complain about stuff that they have full control over is kind of, it's a withdrawal. Like, I'll just go with that, withdrawal, right? Asking you to do stuff without doing anything for you, right? For you, like, that's probably, it's not always a big deal, but I mean, sometimes if you do it too many times, it gets very annoying. that person is gonna be like sitting on you basically, right? So I hope you kind of understand where I'm going with this. Just you can think of every person as having this emotional bank. It's subconscious level, right? And if a person doesn't like you, it's most likely... Now, some people are just crazy and they just don't like, I don't know, because you went to college. I don't know, it's just for no reason whatsoever. Some people just have emotional issues, right? But I'm talking about like on average, like people, that's the theory, right? You want to make people like you, make sure that your emotional bank is in profit. That's it. All right. So that's about it. So other things like there is a summary of the book. I'm gonna post it in the description below. But think about it this way: don't criticize or complain. What does that do on emotional ledger? If you criticize, condemn a person, normally it's a withdrawal. All right. So before you do something to a person, ask yourself: is that a withdrawal from the bank? Or is that a debit? Is that a lodgement into the bank, right? And this way, you can play it like a video game, right? You can say, okay, I'm gonna ask this guy to give me a lift to work after he comes from work. That's a withdrawal, right? So I have to do something for that person, for him not to feel discomforting to do that for me, right? It's kind of like a emotional economy when you think about it, right? In reality, right? And that's how you maintain positive relations, right? Because you give and you receive, right? As long as you make bigger contributions than you withdraw, the relationship will hold, right? Now you also have to remember that, not everybody appreciates things differently, so you might think that making a coffee for a person is 10 points, but he might think it's 2 points. You know what I mean? So that's why try to overdo everything, right? But the core of the idea is this. Like the core of the idea is this emotional ledger, and it's like an emotional economy. Okay? Give honest, sincere appreciation. So I already covered that, right? So you tell a person, well done, they've done something well, you say excellent, well done, that's amazing, right? Arousing persons eager and want. I could not understand what the hell do they mean by this, honestly. Become genuinely interested in people, right? This is very easily fulfilled if you hang out with people who have similar interests to you. So if you're a programmer, hanging out with other programmers, kind of natural, right? Smile, yep, big one. Yep. So you see, when you're smiling, people become at ease, right? You don't have to have like Hollywood smile. You just have to. You can put this as don't look aggressive. Now you don't really necessarily have to be smiling, but you have to be not being aggressive, because you see, when people don't know you and what they're asking is this person gonna hurt me or not, and if you come across as a person who's not gonna hurt, who is helpful, that's all that matters, because then people put down their guards. Do you know what I mean? Because it's an evolutionary instinct. Imagine you meet somebody in the jungle. Is it gonna kill you, or is it gonna be like, hey, I know where to get fresh water, right? So you're trying to figure out, is it gonna be this guy, or is it gonna be this guy? So as fast as possible, try to establish yourself as this guy, right? Remember that person's name. Yeah, name is important. Like, people like to have their name called. Be a good listener. Yeah, this one is also important, especially when you're dealing with a woman. Do not interrupt ladies. I'm telling you from experience, right? Do not interrupt them, because like they get very upset. I don't know why, they just get very upset. But generally, try to listen, because it's a good practice. Why? Because if you don't fully read the sentence, you're gonna make an assumption. And assumptions generally are bad. You want to be making decisions based on facts, and for you to make a good decision, you need information. So listening, even if you can kind of treat it as being very selfish, because you're trying to gather as much information possible to make the right decision. Okay? Talk in terms of other people's interests. Yeah, well, that's kind of straightforward. I mean, find out what you do on weekends. You know, does he play League of Legends? He doesn't play League of Legends. But he plays computer games, right? So if a person is not into dogs, probably not the best idea to talk about dog training. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of very straightforward. Make other person feel important. This is like, don't undermine other people's confidence. You know, don't be rude, basically, and that's it. This is very, very straightforward. Because imagine a statement, you know, oh, like, okay, let's say we have one person says, oh, you just finished college, right? With a thing like, oh, it's not a big deal, right? Or another person says, oh my God, you finished college, well done, right? It's the same statement, but they are have completely different meaning. Because for some people, finishing college is actually a big deal, right? Because they could have come from some kind of family where parents are abusive or whatever. They come from some kind of, God knows where, from some third world country, and for them, like, finishing university is actually a big deal. So again, you see, you assumed that he was probably from Europe, but he could have been from some kind of Pakistan, right? And finishing where there's no education, and so he had to learn the English language. Then he had to pass the test to get into university. Then he had to finish university working full time. It's actually a difficult achievement. It's actually a big achievement. And there you are sitting there telling him, oh, whatever, dude, everybody finishes college, right? So you see, and this probably ties to assumptions, right? So when you're dealing with people, you want to kind of understand their situation a little bit, right? And that boils down to gathering facts. Now, one of the mistakes I made when I was young was because I was, if the guy doesn't drive Lamborghini, I'm not going to talk to him. I used to think like that, right? Because I was brainwashed by a lot of success gurus who tried to sell me the courses, basically. And they said, be close to success, buy the tickets to my premium thing, attend my seminar, right? All of this was designed just to brainwash me. But, like, if you take time to learn about people, especially the background where they're coming from, you have to realize that sometimes small things, like getting a job in management, given the conditions where the person was raised and what he had to go through, would be equivalent to Olympic medalist setting a world record. Does that make sense? Because that person could be supporting 3 like siblings, and his parents are like in a bad shape, and God knows what else is going on. So I'm just saying, don't judge a book by its cover when you deal with people. That is something I learned over experience, I have to say. Because it's very easy to say a person, oh, he's living in some kind of ghetto, right? But you have to understand every single person conditions are different, right? Not everybody is Donald Trump, right? So that's why I'm telling you, like, you have to gather facts. So this kind of listening and make other person important, it will come from just not assuming. You can kind of like, you can sum up these 2 points into a single point, which is, don't assume stuff, just gather facts and see where the person is coming from, right? And then you can kind of, based on that, you can make your contributions, right? Now, I'll tell you, that does not mean you cannot say no to people, because some people, if you're a good listener, they just like to talk and they won't leave you alone, right? So you gotta learn how to create some barriers, kind of like boundaries a little bit, right? Otherwise, some people are just gonna be like, oh, he's a nice guy, that's it. Let me just bring my whole family and we're gonna just he's gonna listen, and all of us are gonna take turns just telling him everything about our life, right? So you kind of need to value your time as well, right? So sometimes you're gonna come across as an asshole, but I mean, that's just the way it is, you know. Because you have to understand, some people, occasionally there are people who just abuse stuff, right? For example, Amazon has a return policy where they literally pay for everything, so they start abusing it, right? They start buying drills, they start buying some hardware equipment. I saw a dude like he was buying hardware equipment, using it, and then returning it back in Amazon. I was like, God damn, dude, that's some cheesy ass shit, right there, right? So they just start, or they find, like, I had a friend who had another friend, right? And that friend, he just has difficulty saying no, and that other friend was just abusing the shit out of it. Do you know what I mean? He would like literally walk into his room, get some milk, and walk back to his place because he had no milk. Do you know what I mean? It's just that some people are just so soft, other people just abuse them. So you probably want to stay away from people like that, you know, who are gonna abuse you because you are contributing. So they kind of figured out, oh, I can just write this guy, right? So at that point, you need to create boundaries. Now, this is like a computer game. You can learn how to do that, right? And you learn how to do that over time, right? So, yep. I think that's about it, right? So to sum it up, How to Win Friends and Influence People is just a emotional economy where every person has a bank account, emotional bank account. Every time you make a person feel good, you make a difference in their life, you make a contribution. Every time you ask a favor, you make a person feel bad, you make a withdrawal. As long as your balance is in surplus, your relationship is solid. And as a rule of thumb, try to contribute to people's life as much as you can. Okay? Take care.